Dr. Anthony Balduzzi, thanks for joining the Pain and Performance podcast.
Dr. Derrick Hines, thanks for having me, buddy.
Yeah, I'm excited. You're always, we talk about like the changes that happen over 40, and now there's like this whole other layer to this that's like, do you know how to function in this new world that we're in? And, comes with some technical learnings, but we're here.
We are here. Yeah, I'm excited for a powerful conversation today.
One of the things that you talk about a lot that really strikes me is kind of like how we kind of need to change the focus a little bit as we go through the aging process. So like one of my initial questions that I think I get from patients, I get from friends and family is like, what is it that starts to change when we cross that 40 mark that makes, I guess, all of the health challenges shift a little bit? What are the things that start to change that make some of our health ambitions, our goals a little more challenging to achieve once we hit that 40 mark?
Awesome question. And I think I want to frame this in the fact that just the trajectory of aging, the nature of these bodies, it kind of runs in like a wave. You know, we're born and then we start building up body tissue. We're getting more clarity in our lives. We're increasing. And there's a point where we almost hit this peak. We always say, oh, I was at my peak. And I don't know for when people that is physically, but it's often in the 20s or the 30s. And then there's a sense that we're on this like decline back of the hill where the body seems to lose a certain amount of resilience. Now, this can be offset with good living, which I'm sure we're gonna talk about quite a bit in today's episode. But when we're on the back part of this, what ends up happening is we realize our recovery capacity is going down, our memory might not be as sharp as it was, we've accumulated aches and pains, and now many of us, when we have families and business ambitions and financial pressures, we have all these stresses that are now external factors changing things. And when we were younger, let's just say the 20s or even the young 30s, we don't have to develop certain mindsets or relationships to our health because we can rely on that vitality and resiliency. So everything, almost like the problem has been brewing for some time. Many people have done foundational work to establish the right habits or the right neuro associations to our health, and then shit hits the fan when people are in their 40s. And then oftentimes that comes down to not having good health routines, eating the wrong kinds of foods, not moving enough. And then when we get into the 50s, we're basically laying the groundwork for cardiometabolic diseases that then come, immune issues, cancers. So it's the thing that so many people are experiencing. And I guess, like you said, it does come down to mindset. I think when we're younger, and maybe you would agree with me on this, many of us are focused on aesthetics, like we want to look a certain way to attract the opposite sex or feel confident or perform in sports. And those things often become just simply less relevant when we do have a partner and have a family, or we're just kind of like over trying to be as fit as we can be. So then we need to have a different motivational framework and relationship to our behaviors to keep us consistent. So that's why we call the companies and the businesses that I run Fit Father Project and Fit Mother Project, because for many of us, it shifts to a longevity focus. It shifts to looking at how are my current behaviors affecting those around me? How are my current behaviors helping me show up as a parent, helping me show up in the workplace, helping me feel aligned, mind, body, spirits? Now we're bringing in this kind of mental, emotional, spiritual aspect. The reasons need to get deeper. And if they're not, we have the symptom of people saying, oh, I'm just not motivated to do X, Y, Z. Well, you haven't gotten clear on those reasons, and they need to be compelling enough for you to take action against the current that wants to keep you stuck right now. Because that's society right now. It's very, very easy to be unhealthy.
Yeah, I think it's a fine line. I'd love to get your take on this between like being okay. Like one of the things that I went into that I was like, I'd love to hear how much he hates the word dad bod, because it's like, look, we love all people equally, no matter how you look, no matter who you are, where you're from, all that stuff. But we want the best for you. Like we want you to be as healthy as possible. And to say that it's okay to have these signs of health, of like kind of, dishealth and disease, we should take that a little more seriously than saying like, oh, it's cute that he's carrying extra weight around the midline. Yeah. It shows this maturity and thing. It's like, no, it doesn't have to. So I do think there's a balance there, but I'd love your take on, kind of this shift to saying it's okay to look unhealthy and be unhealthy in your 40s and 50s.
Well, truly, I think what just came up for me as you shared that with the concept of dad bod is the normalization behind it. I feel like it's almost like a psychological defense coping mechanism that we've kind of come up with as a culture, because like over half of people maybe even more obese or overweight, right? So we're looking around and we don't want to necessarily, until we get really real with ourselves, feel like we're in judgment or things are not going great. And we can look around and say, no, it's okay. This is actually the normal trajectory, but it's not. And I think it's not. If we rewind just even 100 years and we don't have nearly as much processed food, dependence on technology, people are more physically active, we did not have the obesity crisis with kids or with adults that we have today. Like, this is a new phenomenon, and it's dependent on our environmental factors and the choices that people make in relation to those factors. So I guess it's like, it's the default. The dad bod becomes like the default experience for people, but obviously it's not the best. It's not just about having excess fat. Like, excess fat, you could have someone who has excess fat on their bodies. It still is pretty healthy on the inside. You could also have people who have excess fat on the outside that, have a really bad internal health, bad digestive health, bad cardiovascular health. That said, I don't know too many people who don't get some kind of benefit psychologically and certain physically by getting the body fat into a leaner state. And what that means is, hey, maybe that's like 20% body fat instead of 30. Like, that's still great. It's not like we need to walk around with Arnold Schwarzenegger like ripped all the time, right? Like, that's not necessary, but there's a certain area, a zone of like good health that reflects in a good physique as well, that is great. And it's probably leaner than most people are right now.
Yeah, certainly. I think on both ends, in terms of like, if we look at the leanness, body fat percentage, and then on the other end is like, how much muscle mass do we have as we go through that? It's something that we started looking at a lot with patients, because people would find us because obviously they were in pain. And that, I think that pain in your 40s, 50s, early 60s is also a signal that I'm not as healthy as I thought I was. So it brings this motivation, and that's kind of where the podcast came from, was like, a lot of these people, once they started to get out of pain, they were like, okay, this opened my eyes to the fact that I am getting older and I need to change my goals and pay a lot more attention to this. Now I'm ready. I need to get the spare tire off. I need to start gaining some function, some muscle. I want to get back to feeling young and healthy again. And then I think they hit this wall. They get that motivation. You kind of talked about the why. I'd like to dig into that a little bit. But they also kind of run into this thing of like, the stuff that I was doing earlier isn't working now. I was working out a few hours a week in my 20s. I stayed fit. Now I'm going back to doing that stuff, and it's not giving me the same effects. Let's dig into that a little bit. You talked about the why. I think that's a great place to start. And then I'd love to kind of take that all the way down into like, what should these people be looking for? What do they need to change? Do they need to do some different testing to find out what's stopping them?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think like pain is the great motivator. And I know it's the basis of like your medical practice is like people coming in because they feel unwell. It's a signal in the body that something's not great. And it's often like joint alignment, joint dysfunction, muscle imbalances, inflammation, disease degenerative processes, like all of this. And I guess like the cool thing is when we get ourselves healthier, we reduce inflammation, we understand the root of the issue, like we can live long, healthy lives without pain. So our bodies have the ability to regenerate, hence the name of your podcast, right? I mean, that's the beautiful news. But it does require like an intellect. It does require seeing the truth. It does require making behavior change. And I guess all behavior change is underpinned by this emotive capacity we have to make better choices. And I'll say one other thing is, you mentioned this impulse that people have when they want to get healthy. They immediately turn to thinking they need to exercise more. And it's great, right? Exercise is like kind of the fountain of youth. Like, it activates all these longevity genes. It helps us build muscle, which our metabolic rate is dependent on that. But when people are looking to improve their health and their fitness and they're busy parents, exercise is actually not the place to start. It is 100% to clean up your nutrition. You cannot out-exercise a bad diet. Maybe you could if you're Michael Phelps and you're swimming 10,000 calories burning a day in a pool. But like for most people, it's just like nutrition is the 80-20 of this scenario. Like, eating better is going to change your body composition better than anything. And I think that's a good message for people to hear initially, especially if you feel time strapped and you're like, oh man, I don't feel like I have time to add workouts in, or it's hard to get going because my body hurts. But cleaning up your nutrition, you're going to eat anyways, right? You're going to eat every day to a certain extent, but just slotting in better in-slot meals is going to help you a ton. Like, we've had clients lose over 100 pounds literally not touching a dumbbell. They just do daily walking and stuff like that. Now, if you work out, you get added fitness benefits. But what you said about the mindset, I think, is is the underpin of this. So when we walk people through a healing process, before we hand them any kind of nutrition plan or workouts, we help them kind of write what we call like a mission statement for change. And this requires getting into understanding what one's deep why and motivation is. And this is something many people have heard in many different scenarios, but I can maybe perhaps give it to you in a slightly different light. And I guess I'll share a little bit of my personal story to elucidate this. Like the reason I am a guy that's like passionate about this mission of helping dads and moms at the midpoint of life get healthy is because growing up, I watched my own dad basically work himself to the bone, try to bust his butt to put food on the table, and his body broke down. He wasn't taking care of it. He got cancer, and he died when he was 42. I was 9 years old. So like that impressed on my mind from a young age that like health is the foundation of what we love. We lose our health, we lose our ability to like interact with our families, pursue our dreams. And I see the same thing happening with so many people. It might not be cancer, but health is on the back burner. It's something separate. So how do we get health on the front burner? Well, we actually need to connect it to our core values. We need to see that it's not something separate from what we're doing, that it is connected, that it is foundational. So in this process of exploration on the why, I think it's important for people to get clear on what their core values are. Like consciously right now on the top of your mind, or maybe a little reflection, like what are the things you actually care about? So maybe it's your kids. Maybe it's your ability to make money. Maybe it's your relationship to God or spirituality. Maybe it's the value of integrity and wholeness. Maybe it's energy. So if we can write down a couple of these or just think about them, then ask yourself the question is like, how do your behaviors around your sleep, nutrition, and exercise connect to each of those directly? Well, maybe with your kids, when you're not on your game and you're not feeling great, you can be shorter with them, or you just don't feel like you have the energy to engage with them. Maybe with your finances, you realize that you're just dragging ass in the middle of the day all the time, and it's like hard to be productive at work. Maybe with your sense of integrity, you just feel like you're out of alignment, when you're not like really have the body that you want and you feel like something's just not quite right. I want more out of my life. So there's a spiritual component. And what we're doing in this process seems like it's just psychology, but it's actually neuroscience. We're creating new neuroassociations by linking what we actually consciously care about to this new behavior we want to create. And like we have a bias where we want to be consistent with the things that we believe are part of our self-identity. So we need to do this shifting work. And it's good to have this initial shifting work in the realm of like journaling and reflection. Like that's the start. And then it gets crystallized as writing down something like I commit in the next 30 days to doing, X, Y, Z. Simple behaviors that are actionable because this aligns with my core values of X, Y, Z. And I willingly recognize the costs of that. And the costs are, I will get up 2 hours earlier. I will buy a water bottle and start drinking more water. I'll meal prep on Sundays. And I accept these costs because this is what I want to do. So you get that statement in place, and now you need to get into the dojo. So now we're in the realm of action, and you got to start working this, and that's where the real transformation happens. But it's both a psychology and a body and an action component. It all kind of like collapses together. And like, look, this is a hero's journey. This is the last thing I'll say here. It's a hero's journey. If this were easy, everyone would have six packs walking around like eating like broccoli and avocados, right? It's like, it's obviously not easy, but it's worth it. It's worth it because the feeling of alignment that you get, it's worth it because we all, I believe, have this sense that we want to be fully expressed in all these levels of our being. And it kind of stinks to be in pain, and it feels great to feel great. So there's a lot of benefit to doing this work.
I love the hero's journey thing. It's one of the things we talk a lot about, and certainly I've mentioned quite a bit on here. Like when you look at the hero's journey, the challenges in the hero's path are not meant to throw them off. It's meant to strengthen the direction and the identity of where the hero's going. And we tell our patients that, like, this isn't supposed to be something that completely derails you. This is supposed to be something that actually stimulates the change and puts you on that path now, that when you're 60, 70, 80, you're like, I did have that hiccup, and then I changed this, and then I changed this and this, and now I'm doing everything that I want to do because of that shift in my pathway. So in that sense, it was a blessing. In that sense, that challenge is what propelled me forward. It's that mindset shift, and it kind of goes to what you were saying. That little click of this, I can make this serve me. Can be immensely powerful to people if they actually kind of do what you said and take the time to dig into it. And how does this come back to my, beliefs, my drives, my core values, and spend some time in it. I love it.
And Derrick, one thing on that too, I know you want to go in a new direction here, but like the hero's journey is like that reflection you just described so well. is so relevant in the beginning stages of the journey to get you that initiation energy to get you going, but it's also the same kind of mindset that helps you overcome future challenges. Because there's many people who can get traction, but then they get derailed. Life happens, they fall off track, XYZ excuse, some external factor. And if you can recognize that you're on this ongoing hero's journey, and that any future setback is not like something that totally derailed you off the path, it's just a continuing propagation of this hero's journey. That's the mindset that helps you shift back on course, because health is not something you win. It's not a game that has an end. It's not like you just succeed. You win the game of health and fitness and you're done. It's like a process of ongoing course correction, a process of ongoing realignment. Even for a super healthy guy like you, like I know there's challenges down your path in some way, shape, or form that we can't see, but like you have the mindset of knowing that, it's going to be okay and there's a silver lining in all of this. And man, I mean, if people can adopt that, easier said than done, but that's a powerful mindset.
Yeah, I'm with you. I know we want to kind of get to some of the tactics and stuff, but I think this is so important for people to sit with for a second, that like expecting those challenges to come and knowing that it's going to happen. You're going to have a hiccup point. If you start to change your health right now, you listen to this and you're like, I'm 40, I'm tired of this, I'm ready to start this, what y'all are talking about. Like that excitement is going to start to fade, and you need to expect it. And that might be part of the challenge when you get to the boring, they call it the mundane middle.
Yeah.
Like that boring part of it is where you make all of your progress. That's where you really can overcome a lot, is when people get past that first, few months of excitement, I'm changing everything. And then it gets to that mundane part of like, you got to put the work in. You got to just do the activities and wake up early and keep going, even though progress has started to slow down. That's where that power is. And knowing that's coming, knowing that's going to be there, knowing you're going to have a setback, you're going to have a minor injury, and kind of expecting it so that you're ready to overcome some of that stuff is really where you can start to get past these things and make tons and tons of progress by, just kind of stay in the course.
A couple more comments on that, because I think this is really, really valuable. What you're hitting on is the mundane middle aspect. Okay, so how do we actually reignite motivation or feel motivated in anything? Well, we have to have reasons. So we talked about that deep emotive process, but we also need clarity. Like if we're like light, a laser beam is focused light. It has something to aim at. So oftentimes when we feel like we're losing motivation, it's because we're off the plan. So when people are following something to a T, they know exactly what to do. They feel motivated. When the plan ends or they don't know what to do, it's like scattered energy that will then just dissipate. So ways to reignite your motivation is continuously setting new targets, new goals, new challenges. So initially people are motivated when they lose weight, and then they reach a good weight or body fat level, and oftentimes they feel like they lost a sense of purpose, like I'm here. So you must continuously set new targets, new growth targets. So oftentimes maybe, okay, so now it's training for a particular kind of Spartan race, or now it's shifting to focus on my strength, or now it's really understanding mobility and practicing some of these movement exercises. But it's getting a new continuous focus. And the other thing that's important is understanding progress trajectories and how to track along the way, because tracking is a part of the journey. Like we have mild markers on the roads. When we're losing weight, we have mile markers on the scales, or inches on our body, or health markers. And I think those things naturally have a trajectory to them. When we have a lot of weight to lose, we lose weight very quickly. 3 to 5 pounds a week is very common. As you get leaner, 1 pound a week is a good option, maybe even less. And you need to understand how to change the way you track over time to make them a little bit less biometric and maybe a little more like expanded into performance, expanded into your ability to do things. So it could be like at first you're doing weight and body fat measurements, and now over time you're doing like performance metrics in the gym or run times or et cetera. But have many different measuring sticks and mile markers is going to keep you more engaged in the journey, because like we're kind of like we're like, it's so amazing. We're creating like this Disneyland architecture of like how we feel engaged in the process with the right kinds of dopamine. So we're both creating the trajectory for ourselves with our structure and our plan, and then also experiencing it as the self. So it's really what the human experience, right? I mean, wow, there's a lot to this.
So let's go. You said like starting this. So I think that whole segment, everybody, you might want to go back and re-listen to that. There's so much in there that I think if you start there, it puts you in a position to succeed, where a lot of people who just say, just give me something to start with, will fail. But you mentioned kind of, you can't like outwork a bad diet.
Yeah.
So if you're starting to clean stuff up, what's those major hit points that is a clean diet over 40? How does that change? Because like as a young person, you're lucky. You're a teenager. Watch what our teenagers eat. They just shovel stuff in and they stay fit.
Yeah.
At 40, you're like, man, it seems like I look at a muffin and I gain 2 pounds. So what is a clean diet for the 40 plus crowd? What are the things they're starting to look at, track, pull out?
Love it. All right. Well, I think that there's always in this nutrition discussion, there's the initial drive to want to talk about food, like which foods are good and which foods are bad, which is like, it's nutrition. Of course, we're going to talk about food, but I actually think that's the wrong place to start initially. I think we need to understand that nutrition is ultimately about consistency in behaviors. And to be more consistent, we need to have a plan and we need structure. Just like the body is built on the structural layout of the skeletal system that the muscles hang off of and move, we need architecture with our nutrition in terms of like knowing what our meal timing schedule setup is. Knowing when we eat is the first place to start, because the reason people fall prey is they get into reactive eating. They don't have a plan. They missed a meal. They snacked here and they didn't think about it, or they're starving heading into dinner. So if we can move the reactivity out of nutrition and make it proactive, that's key. And to be proactive, we have structure. So when we get people into our nutrition approach, the first thing is we give them like 5 different meal timing schedule setups that work for many people. Some are the traditional breakfast, lunch, snack, and dinner kind of setup. Some are intermittent fasting type setups. Some are good for people who work the night shift or the third shift. Like, you need a plan that kind of fits you, your natural rhythms, and how your family works and serves. So like anything that's going to create friction in your nutrition routine is going to create resistance over time. So we also want to remove friction. So we're kind of like designing a really good machine. Now, let's just say for the purposes of kind of discussing this, that we do the breakfast, lunch, snack, dinner, and we'll use that as a template. And we can also talk a little bit about intermittent fasting. I think like it's, again, about the life experience. It's so cool that we wake up every day and we kind of have a fresh canvas of like choices that we can make. And like, no matter what happened yesterday, we have a new thing that we can do. And that's how we need to start thinking about nutrition. And in particular, the very, very first things we do in the morning is key. And the first thing we need to do in the morning, regardless of food, is to get a really good rehydration ritual in. First thing in the morning. I mean, our bodies, we all heard it, right? We're made of water. We need water. Hydration is essential for metabolism, energy, etc. And it's true. And particularly getting rehydrated in the morning, 20 to 32 ounces of ideally like very clean, pure water. Get some kind of water filter. A lot of tap water is BS, quite frankly, and no matter where people live. And maybe even add some minerals to that water. Trace mineral drops, pink Himalayan sea salt, Celtic sea salt, like stuff like this. There's many, many options. Our bodies are electrically conductive, and we use minerals to make that electrical conduction happen. And when we feel so much better when we get hydration in the morning. Now, the cool thing about this is not only is there a physical benefit, but there's also a psychological benefit. We are anchoring ourselves to this day with this small action of drinking this water, being like, today I'm investing in my health. Today I'm doing something I know is definitively good for me. And you could still have your morning coffee, but like have this happen before that. And it's a small little thing to get going. You do that, you now create a behavioral hook to help keep you on track or reset you. If the last night you were out with the kids after a sports game, you had a beer and pizza, and you woke up today feeling a little bloated, at the very least, this is a new momentum shifter in the morning. So hydration is key well before food.
I want to give a quick little thing on that, because I love what you're saying. You're kind of, preaching to the choir, so to speak. Like that little action, it sets you on the path. One thing that I've had patients tell me is like, they're like, that sounds great, but as soon as I get to the kitchen and I smell the coffee, it's like that little area of my brain has like, I forget, so to speak, and I've clicked off. So one of the things we started telling patients to do, and to amazing success, is I'm like, get a Yeti cup, fix the water, drop your little mineral in there, whichever one you do. There's a bunch out there. Pink Himalayan sea salt's an easy one to put a little sprinkle in. And I'm like, bring that to bed with you. Put it there. As soon as you wake up, before you're allowed to leave the room, drink your 20 to 30 ounces. And it's like you not only have you anchored your morning, but at night you've preset that intention that this is how I'm going to wake up and go through my day. So like, it makes it more likely we've lowered that barrier of entry, so to speak, because it's right there. And you're a lot more likely to remember to do that at night. When you wake up and you're kind of going through the routine, at some point you build the muscle. But when you're doing this, if you start bringing and putting these pieces in place, it makes it so much easier for you to go. And now, you drank it. Hey, maybe you get to the kitchen and you're like, you know what? I'm gonna go sit outside for a minute before I have this cup of coffee. But anyway, so small thing that has made our patients more successful with that.
Yeah, I do the same thing. Right, I put my water out the night before, and this is by no accident. Like what you described is like totally true, and we're just paving the path to our success. And I guess the same thing can be said about drinking water throughout the day. I think the people that are most consistent with hydration have some kind of water bottle, have some kind of like glass jar. They have something that they're taking with them, carrying with them, and they drink water between meals. And also the cool thing about drinking a lot of water is you end up moving more because you end up peeing more, and you just like are kind of like the system is constantly moving, and there's a lot of benefit to that. So that's another good thing. Do you have a water bottle or something like that you keep regularly?
Absolutely. And it's funny you said that. We just released, it's like an hour and a half podcast on hydration that goes into like how much movement is hydration. We think it's just taking it in, but you really want to get it into all those tissues. So it's no coincidence that as we're drinking more water, we want to move more so that we're hydrating, we're getting that into the fluids, into the body, into the nervous system. We're using that hydration, and it's not just, as people say, going through you. So those run together for a reason if we look at it physiologically.
Yeah, and look at this too. Like, okay, so we look at a young kid, a baby, a toddler. Their skin, their tissue is so hydrated. There's blood flow. There's like, it's plump. There's water everywhere. And we look at someone who's like 80 or 90 in bad shape. They look like a shriveled grape. The skin is weathered, it's dehydrated. The discs actually get dehydrated, and they get smaller and shorter, and we have back pain and nerve impingement. So like hydration is absolutely synonymous with youth. So like this is an area to take seriously. And if you do this, it's going to help everything be more productive. There you go. So now the other thing we like to do is like, now we talk about the first meal of the day, like whenever that happens. And I guess it depends on if you're the kind of person that enjoys fasting, if you're hungry or not hungry in the morning. Whenever that first meal comes, just decide that for you. It's a great thing if you're going to work out in the morning, work out fasted. Like there's really not a reason to put food in your belly unless you find like I absolutely feel better working out, having a little protein and a little apple or something before workout. Like that's cool. If that's what you find out for you, good. But don't be afraid to work out fasted. There's benefits, or work out later in the day. Now, the first meal of the day, I love to standardize that meal because I think when it comes to nutrition, like we're balancing the force of consistency and variety, and we need both. We need a little bit of variety, and we need a lot of consistency. And I think meal one is the time to be consistent, especially as a busy parent, because you don't want decision fatigue. You don't want to be thinking about a whole bunch of things to do. And quite frankly, you don't want to be eating any BS that's going to throw your blood sugar into a tailspin or be hard to digest. So there's like a couple things that we say are good for people, like make some kind of like protein power smoothie with like protein, berries, greens, hemp seeds, chia seeds, some kind of powder in there, like whatever. Like that's awesome. That's like micronutrients, easy to digest, keeps you full, takes 5 minutes to blend. It's a no-brainer. Like that's cool. Eggs and fruit type recipes, no-brainers. Overnight oatmeal if you're doing a vegan vegetarian with so much like high protein stuff in there, no-brainer. But standardize that first meal of the day, because like look, if we have 3 meals per day, 7 times per week, just like on average, that's 21 decision points. Like imagine just removing a third of those off the table. Already best in slot good, and I don't need to think about it. Like, man, you're like seriously winning just by doing that. And if you're not doing that, if you're not having this high protein, good fiber, like phytonutrient rich breakfast, like I described all three of those, you're absolutely getting BS, because the other breakfast food options are typically non-organic grains, high sugar stuff. They're going to make you feel crappy. Your blood sugar is going to go crazy. And guess what happens when you feel terrible from eating a bad first meal? It means you're going to eat worse later in the day. You're going to get on this roller coaster. So like get off the roller coaster, standardize meal number one. Like, Derrick, is it fair to say that you have a standardized meal number one to a certain extent?
It's so funny because I was same thing, doing kind of research on yours, and I was like, we're in the final editing stages of my first book, and it talks a lot about the things that we talk about here. And my editor said, you know what I did is I implemented the 2 first meal, like restart your day things. And she's like, I've lost, this is not a lie, over a year, I've lost 25 pounds.
Nice.
My pain has come down dramatically. She's got some issues. She was like, so now I'm kind of like, do I even need to do the rest? So we had to add a little section of like, hey, if you're getting healthy, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Keep going. But yeah, so I have 2 or 3 that I'll go to. Overnight oats with some protein in there.
Yep.
We've started adding, super simple, grab it, head out the door. You can eat it while you're kind of, heading to work. My other one is that we'll do like an egg and we hunt quite a bit here, and
Yeah.
like a ground deer meat.
Nice.
And we'll just make like a little egg scramble. It's something that we can do in a quiche. You can freeze
Yep.
it. Takes a minute to warm it up, and I've got like a little quiche stack that's just stacked with great protein.
Yep.
And we all talk about it. When you eat that, the rest of your day is now like I feel better. No,
Yep.
like there's no drag. I'm not feeling like I'm having trouble making that good decision. We have the best patients in the world here. I love them to death. They bring us amazing treats all the time. So that means my office has constantly got donuts and biscuits and like these amazing treats. And I thank them. Most of y'all are listening to this. I love you. I promise. But if I don't have one of those standardized breakfasts, the chance that I indulge in those probably goes up 60%.
For sure.
And I feel it. You see it, and because you're not on your path, you're not on your routine. You see those things, and you're like, man, I missed. I forgot to grab that. I forgot to do it. Like I'm already off the routine.
Yep.
So what's the harm in going down there? And then, I'm already having a bad day. They want to go grab a burger at lunch. Cool. All right. Well, I've already had a shitty day. So am I going to hit my workout this evening, or do we want to just kind of go veg out and get to tomorrow so we can restart? It's the story we hear so much. So what you're saying, like, have that script of what is the first hour.
Yeah.
I can't overstate how powerful that can be.
Yep. It is. And also that's your ability to shift momentum. Because let's say you had the day that you just described, you ate the treats, you had the microwavable pizza because you were busy at night. The next day, how do you make sure that doesn't turn into a full week of that behavior, or a full month, or a full year? You have a routine to help shift you into a different momentum pattern. And that's exactly what you just described. So like winning the morning is everything with nutrition, and standardization is like the key. And I'd say, like, quite frankly, like if you have lunch or there's another meal that comes sometime in the afternoon, also like making that simple but like decently standardized is good. So maybe you're constantly doing the protein and greens if you're looking at losing weight. Maybe you have a sandwich recipe with some sprouted organic bread or something like that. Maybe you use leftovers from dinner the night before that was healthy. But like lunch also is a good time to be decently standardized. And I also think like snacks as well. Like I think of snacks as like Batman has like a tool belt. He's got a bunch of cool stuff in there. Like snacks need to be like, what your tools are. And they need to be like natural foods for the most part. Fruits, nuts, jerkies, maybe a bar that's not like full of a bunch of crap, and maybe some kind of shake. But like everyone should know what their go-to snacks like are, and have those like around where you're at. So again, you're not reactive, proactive. So you like booby trap your environment. So I like these like chili roasted pistachios. I like macadamia nuts. I like certain kinds of fruits and berries. I like coconut yogurt with some berries on there, or occasionally like a protein shake. But like these things are around my environment. So if I get to a point where like I am very hungry and I'm crossing this chasm between noon and dinner at 6, like that's 6 hours, that can be a lot of time for people. I have something in slot. So if people are listening to this and you don't know your go-to snacks, and the one thing you did this week is like decide what your 3 go-to snacks are, buy them in bulk and scatter them everywhere, like you're in like great shape, right? Because you're shifting out of reactive mode. And then dinner, I think, is the time where it's good to have a little more variety, especially if you're a family person and you are feeding lots of different mouths and preferences. Like, you've already done great with the first 2/3 of the day. It's going to be likely you're still going to want to eat something that's rich in protein, vegetables, etc. I'm of the belief and the opinion, and this is from helping so many people lose weight, that like you can have carbohydrates in the plan. It does not have to be like a strict no carb, completely low carb keto kind of aspect. Now, choose the right kinds of carbs, but look, a cup of rice, a cup of some kind of pasta, a little bit of a sweet potato or something like this is not going to make or break your progress. It's not going to destroy your ability to burn fat because you have some kind of carbohydrate. It may be the ticket to making it sustainable for your family and keeping you on track long term. So just understand protein, veggie, healthy carbs, or healthy fats is like a framework, and you can make all sorts of stuff like the grass-fed steak, the venison that you hunted, with a side of steamed broccoli, asparagus, and any kind of like quinoa, sweet potato. But like the concept we say is like build a perfect plate. If you took a plate of food, fill half of it with some kind of fibrous vegetable you love, a quarter protein, a quarter carbs. And if your plate generally looks like that, you have wiggle room. If you're eating like these kinds of foods, it's going to be around 500 to at max like 800 calories depending on portion size. And for most people's bodies, like that's probably the right amount of food for dinner, because the other meals, and you're going to be on calorie target without counting them.
One of the questions we get a lot is both of those. Is as I age, does my calorie intake change and my macro levels? Do I need to shift those? Like, what is a good macro balance? Is that something that you buy into? How do you teach your clients to use that to their benefit?
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk on the calories. Like, the amount of calories you can eat to maintain your weight is completely dependent on your muscle and your activity level. So that's the benefit of like actually strength training. You have a bigger metabolic engine. Yes, you burn calories when you're strength training, but muscle mass is energetically expensive. So a man who's 50 who lifts regularly can probably eat 1,000 extra calories per day over someone who is not active or like less fit. So 1,000 might be an overstep. A point being is muscle's a metabolic engine, strength training, and you have more wiggle room. So that's a really good thing. If you do not strength train and you get older, then your calorie needs are going to go down. And quite frankly, I'll use the word like digestive fire. I think a lot of us find that we just strictly do not need the kind of food that we needed when we were, playing sports in our teens and 20s. So that's why intermittent fasting tends to work well for people as they get older in some respects, where you can have one or two like larger meals and have larger stretches where you're not constantly eating all the time. So that's beneficial. Now, in terms of like the approach to macros, like you can get very technical with this. You can get very into the weeds with this. And if you're someone who's looking at pushing your body into like a competitive physique or athletics, I think it can be beneficial to get into the weeds. But for most people, it's not. I think what is important to focus on is a higher protein diet. These kind of proteins are just so beneficial for our recovery. And so that means like the kind of breakfast that you described, whether it's the quiche recipe, the eggs and the venison, or even like a shake or the overnight oats, you're getting like 30 to 50 grams of protein in that meal. If you look to get into that target for breakfast, you're in good shape. If you do any of the dinners I described, you're also going to be in 30 to 50 grams of protein range. And so right there, we're sitting like almost at let's just say we could be up to 100 grams of protein. And I mean, throughout the middle of the day, if you're having some kind of snack that's natural and good, or even a lunch, you're going to be landing around 100 to 150 grams of protein. And I think that is absolutely plenty. So that's good without a lot of digestive stress. So higher protein focused. I think the carbohydrates are where we have the most individual difference, where some people feel better on higher carb versus lower carb plans. It's probably a good idea for most people, especially when you're losing weight, which often comes around with some degree of insulin resistance, some degree of eating the wrong kinds of carbohydrates, to lower the carbs in the process of getting healthy. Doesn't mean eliminate them, but maybe if you're having the breakfast that we described, I'm sure the breakfast that you had was probably like, again, under 50 grams of carbs, maybe even under 30 grams of carbs. And then dinner that I described, if you have a cup of any kind of cooked carbohydrate, is going to be around 50 or 30 to 50 grams of carbohydrates. So I would say a reasonable target for people to shoot for is like probably under 150 grams. Some people might even feel better under 100 grams. But I guess the thing is, you can still have them. You're just like eating lower carbohydrate. And healthy fats are something I think it's very beneficial, we know now, for people to increase. And what healthy fats are, the fats that are found naturally in meats. It could be eggs, it could be nuts, it could be olive oil, it could be avocados, the omega-3 sources that we might get, hemp seeds and chia seeds. Like, these are good for energy. They stabilize our blood sugar, good for hormone production. So if I had to pick my ideal macro breakdown that like fits, like, let's say 2,500 calorie diet for like the average 50-year-old guy, I would say it's probably around 20% protein, 35% fat, and maybe it looks like maybe it's 25% protein, 35% fat, and the remainder carbohydrate. It might even be slightly higher, but more of a balanced macronutrient approach is kind of what works well for many people. But you can play with the carbs and fats as long as you protein forward.
Yeah, I think I agree. Protein is the one that people have the most difficult time hitting their targets, at least from what I've found, especially in the aging population. So if we're like make sure you sketch out so you're getting the amount of protein in. As we age, muscle becomes a premium. We need that. And I think all these tie together when you look at it, like what you're talking about is that when we're starting to decrease our calorie intake, a lot of times that starts to coincide with people starting to lose muscle mass. And then we get into this weird situation where we're like, I'm having trouble every time I increase my calorie intake. It seems like I gain weight, but it's the wrong kind of weight. because I don't have the muscle mass that is using and burning those calories.
Yep.
And it's like we need to be really smart about how we raise those together. And you can't do one without the other.
Yes.
We have to start doing the work to build the muscle.
Yes.
And we have to have the protein to build the muscle.
Yep.
And those need to kind of coincide as we elevate those. And if we do it correctly, I think, that really puts us in a position to move better, which means that we burn more. So we're taking in, these quality foods and we're actually using it, not storing it. So it's this giant, beautiful circle if we do it right.
And I think that to your point, now I think that you have a perfect segue into the other aspect is we need to create that stimulus through resistance training to get the body to build muscle. Like you could have the perfect diet of like a bodybuilder, but if you're not training, the muscles are not getting a signal from the kind of damage and tension that's created with the resistance training to create any adaptation response. You could eat eggs, grass-fed beef, broccoli, whatever, and you could be healthy, but you're not going to be creating the stimulus in the muscles. So we need to strength train. And I think strength training is even more important for people over 40 than it is for people in their 20s. Like for the reasons of maintaining muscle mass, for the reasons of shifting hormone profiles, keeping bones strong. The body responds to stress. Like, we have the bad kind of debilitating mental, physical, kind of stress there, but this is eustress. This is getting in and doing structured exercise with the kind of motions we need to be strong at. And I think the cool thing is as we get older, we don't need to train all the time. I think getting a good strength training, a stimulus, like minimum effective dose would be like probably 2 times per week with a couple rest days. But if you can get up to 3 times per week, very good. And as you get more fit, you end up liking these things. And that's why you have people who want to work out like more and they go up to 4 times per week. It becomes fun over time. But look, if you can get in and do some kind of resistance training workout twice a week, you're very busy. You're giving your body this beautiful stimulus that's going to mean you actually use the nutrients you're eating on the other days in the purpose of building and repairing. And if you're doing smart exercise, meaning you're picking joint-friendly motions, you're working within your bounds and you have like structured training, you're going to get great effect. And the cool news as well is there's many people and so many case studies, and certainly from the people going through our programs, that if you just start strength training in your 40s and your 50s, you can get in incredible shape, even if you're like starting from scratch. Like give yourself a year of strength training, you can look amazing. You can totally change. You can astonish yourself at what you can accomplish.
What would be kind of some of the starting things that y'all have people who have not been in the strength training world, maybe they've never been in a gym or, very basic stuff. Mm-hmm. What's an exercise like segment look like in one training session? And then my follow-up to that would be like, how do you structure the week of their training?
Nice. All right. Well, if someone's looking to lose weight, there's a particular kind of training we recommend that's a little more beneficial than if someone's looking to build muscle exclusively. And I recommend that people who still feel like they have some body fat to lose, particularly like central body fat, focus on getting leaner first, because it's actually easier to build muscle from a leaner state. You have more favorable hormone profiles, you're more insulin sensitive. So let's talk about the weight loss component first. Yep. There's 3 types of exercise we need to do as we age. We need the resistance and strength training. We need flexibility and mobility training, and we need cardiovascular work. And like if you're a busy parent like me, the idea of doing all of those separately seems like a part-time job. So we like to kind of collapse those down and combine them into one type of workout that we call metabolic resistance training. So there are foundational movements, like our body dimensionally on the central axis of the spine. We have our paired appendages that are mirrored. We can move in space in particular ways. We can push and pull things away from our body. We can push and pull things overhead. We can squat down and we can pick things up. And we can hinge at the hips. I mean, I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but what I just described is, push-ups, rows, shoulder presses, pull downs, squats, deadlifts, and swings. These are like the primary foundational motions that if we're strong at when we're 70 and 80, we have a good quality of life. So what we do is we instruct people to get a pair of dumbbells or kettlebells and do these motions in a circuit fashion. So it might look like going from swings into squats, into shoulder presses, into rows, into push-ups. So you could do maybe like 5-10 reps of each of those. So 5 swings, 5 squats, 5 push-ups, 5 shoulder presses, 5 rows. And now you're getting cardiovascular effect. Or some of these fun workouts we design in our programs are like pyramids, where you do 1 rep of each of those. Take a breather. 2 reps of each of those, breather. And you work your way up to a pyramid of 10 and right back down. These workouts can take, anywhere from like 25 to 45 minutes. and you do them once or twice per week. Does anyone listening to this have an hour to invest each week in dramatically improving their cardiometabolic health and their energy and the way they look and feel? Like, heck yeah, we all do, even the busiest of us. But it's a matter of getting clarity on what these workouts look like. And our Fit Father and Fit Mother Project YouTube channels is a little like plug. We have over 500 videos. Many of those are great workouts like this. You can check out how those exactly go. But like posting those in twice per week, very, very good. I love using free weights because it challenges our joints and all our stabilize their muscles really well. And I think it's really cool because you can do them anywhere. You know, dumbbells, kettlebells at home, you can get it in. And if you have kids that are teens and are into sports, like we have a lot of our members that like to do it with their kids as well, which is kind of fun. So doing those a couple times a week is a really good option. And I believe that high intensity exercise is the thing you think about to be pulsed. Like you've put it on your calendar, looking at the week ahead is scheduled meetings. And again, 2 of these is fine. 3 is even better. But like you're getting a metabolic benefit for the next 24 hours after you do a single session. So you're getting a lot of effect even after training. It's not just calories burned. You're making an investment in muscle and your metabolism. Then the rest of the time, daily activity is your friend. It's like so important. We look at these pockets of longevity around the world, the people that live to 100 plus regularly, like they're not doing P90X. Like they probably benefit from that, like doing some high intensity exercise, but they're outside, they're gardening, they're walking, they're accumulating lots of movement. So I think getting as many steps as you can throughout the day, ideally if you can get outside and breathe through your nose and just accumulating movement is what you do baseline. You know, daily walking and then pulse your exercise.
I'll tell you a kind of a funny story. We were in Croatia where you look around and it's like everyone you see is these incredibly active, like 90-year-olds.
Yeah.
Incredible. And so we're talking about like the Mediterranean diet while we're there. They eat a lot of fish. They do a lot of olive oil, a lot of fresh greens. And that's one component. We were sitting at dinner and we were up on a hill and our server was probably 70. And he's like, you know, we have a group of 5 or 6 and we're like, you know, what do y'all have? And so he pulls out like an old flip phone and he's flipping through pictures that he just took of fish down at the harbor. And he's like, for y'all size, I would take this one. And we're like, yeah, give us that one, whatever you recommend. And he turns around, he leaves the front door of the restaurant, runs to the harbor, which is down probably like 20 flights of stairs, gets the fish for us, runs back up into the restaurant, brings it to the kitchen. They start cooking it. And like that was, he didn't even blink at that. And I'm like, in 4 minutes to serve his table, he just did more activity than probably what 50% of Americans will do in a day.
Sure.
And I was like, we talk about the diet part and it's important. They're doing a lot of right things, but we can't jump over this giant chasm of what they do during the day to move that brings them to that. It was just, we all were just kind of, wait, did you just go down to the harbor to get, he was like, yeah, it's just down there. We're like, no, it's not. We came from there. We were all sweating when we got up here.
Yep.
So it's a very big component. And one thing I'd like to add to that is knowing they've done these studies where we tell people that your activity that you're doing outside of this is healthy. It's helpful. As you're moving throughout the day seeing patients, as you're going about your job and you're standing at your desk and you're shifting weight, knowing that those little activities are improving your health and having that awareness and occasionally just tapping into, oh, I am moving, I'm doing something healthy. Connecting the brain and body in that way makes it even more beneficial for you now. Like it actually taps into this deeper mechanism of the stuff that I'm doing is improving my health at a deeper level. And now we're tying it all together because you're getting this bigger brain body awareness that leads to better results, that makes you want to do more. So there's this same thing
Positive
we're talking about.
momentum.
Tap into that. Yep.
Yeah. And you nailed it. You nailed it. So I guess the question is, like, what is our version of the fish market harbor in our lives? Like, where can we find that? And I'll share a couple like tangible examples. Like, I have a desk job, right? You know, I work from a computer largely in doing all this health education stuff. Like, I hang a pull-up bar behind me. And not that I'm always doing pull-ups, but it's there. And after an hour of work, I might hang from the pull-up bar. I might do a little bit. If you're drinking a lot of water, you're constantly walking to pee. You can park your car farther away. You can take a walk with your family after dinner. And we know that prolonged sitting is pretty bad for the spine. And many of us are sitting for a very long time. So even if you get up every 5-10 minutes and just do a little bit of like stretching, mobility, move your hips out. Maybe you get a foam roller and keep that around your office. Like all this stuff, when it becomes just integrated as a habit into your life, like movement is everything. Motion is lotion for the joints. We hear that a lot, but like it's also just like the idea of taking the stairs instead of the elevator. If this becomes like a way of life, you're just going to be like so much healthier. And it's also the mental hurdle, right? What you described earlier, when someone has like the bad breakfast or misses breakfast and then they go eat the crap and they say the day is gone. It's the same all or nothing mindset that shows up with exercise, where people believe the only way to get exercise is in a discrete 45-minute session in a gym at a CrossFit class. And that's simply not true. This idea of micro workouts, like what if you actually did like 25 push-ups, every 2 hours, throughout the day? You would do 100 to 100 to 200 push-ups like over the course of the day. You don't think that's going to be beneficial for you, like versus doing zero? Of course it is. It's going to be massively good. So it's largely a mindset. And I think to break up sitting, to break up work, it's good to breathe through our nose, do a little motion, do some squats, bounce up and down, get outside, get some sunshine, take a walk. And also the cool thing is, like, after big meals, if anyone feels tired after big meals, many of us do, partially the blood sugar plus partially all the blood flow that needs to come to the GI tract to break down a big meal. Doing a light walk after dinner is one of the best things we can do. It regulates blood sugars. It activates some of these glucose receptors in the large muscles of our legs and glutes. And it's just a really nice, like, after meal digestive. So depending on the time of the year, could you take a walk with your family a little bit after dinner, before or after you do the dishes? These are lifestyle things that'll need to be adopted, but they're massively beneficial.
Anthony, let's kind of shift in some of these advanced tactics that I've heard you kind of talk about. And I'd be remiss if we didn't kind of at least touch on one of the questions that we've got is a lot in the peptide world. And I'm sure you get a ton of this stuff. And I'd love to get your take on not only that, but like some of these advanced things that people can integrate. I'm going to caveat that if you haven't started the basics, start the basics. Like the stuff that we've talked about already, improving those things. You can't skip to the supplements and to these advanced tactics and to any like peptides to actually get healthy if you don't have the basics covered. So let's caveat that. Somebody's doing all the basics right, and they're like, I just want to layer in some of these kind of, new research, advanced technologies or supplements or compounds to make my results better. I know a lot of people listening to this have probably heard all the craze of Ozempic and a lot of the celebrities talking about some of that stuff. So let's dive into that angle of it for a moment.
Sounds good. I think the categories that maybe we can quickly hit are supplements and peptides, light therapies, extended fasting, and maybe some different electromagnetic different therapies you can do with medical devices. So, okay, one area I think a lot of people can benefit from as they get older is to take supplements that optimize nitric oxide levels. Like NO, nitrogen and oxygen combined as a gas, is the most ubiquitous signaling gas we have in the body. It's basically what we know increases circulation. It's a vasodilator. It's the same thing that Viagra and Cialis, these drugs we take for ED, it inhibits the enzyme that breaks it down, increases nitric oxide levels. And so nitric oxide normally decreases as we age, and exercise is one thing that helps improve that. And I think there's supplements you can take to improve nitric oxide levels. There's a couple of things you can do is, one, get more dietary nitrates into your body. And so these are largely from the dark leafy greens, but you can also take these nitric oxide tablets that have nitrate that sit on your tongue, and then they're basically turned into nitrite through the bacteria on your tongue, and you get higher nitric oxide levels. I think that's huge. Arginine and citrulline are some other supplements that people take often for NO boosting. And then from a pharmaceutical perspective, even taking a low dose of Cialis, which is the tadalafil, it's a medication. Many people for erectile dysfunction take it at 40 milligrams for like sexual performance. But if you take 5 milligrams a day, some people are calling it the aspirin of the future. It just is a gentle amount of increased nitric oxide in your body, which is going to, if you improve your circulation, you improve everything. You improve healing, you improve your mindset, you improve like blood flow is like the fluid of life internally in the body. So anything to boost NO is a really good idea. Anything to boost your mitochondrial health is huge. And so the stuff we talked about already in terms of like the high intensity exercise, the proper diet is very, very good. But there's the whole realm of all the supplements like the NADs, the NMMs, like they're going through a weird regulatory period right now where some things are not as available, and there's a lot of politics behind why that is. But like but it's good to take some of those supplements that are marketed as this helps your mitochondria. Here's some of our research. So even taking some niacin, the B3 can be a precursor to some of this, but like mitochondrial health is ultimately going to determine your longevity, your level of fitness, and there's many inputs, but I think the category of mitochondria boosting supplements are very, very good. I also think the category of supplements that help protect fats from oxidation. So good, of course, for the omega-3 fatty acids that are very good, and those things embed themselves into your cells and make cell membranes more fluid. But something a lot of people don't know about is there's a particular form of vitamin E called tocotrienols. And those are really, really powerful, like scavengers of free radicals on the cellular level. They protect our cells, and they actually work to lower cholesterol levels as well. They have like a mild statin-like effect without the drawbacks of taking something like an actual statin drug, which has some problems with it. So protecting fats in your body from getting damaged is like a huge part of longevity. And that means don't eat bad bullshit foods that are going to, cause inflammation, but it also means increase your protection mechanisms. Very relevant. And then I think there's this whole world of cognitive enhancing supplements, like stuff that can be good for memory as we age. Lion's mane mushroom is something that is definitely worth people looking at. I think there's a lot of good nootropic different supplements that have focus compounds that can be pretty cool when you want to optimize brain health. A very expensive, like Ferrari level product in that space is the brand Qualia. They have some really good products, very expensive, but they're good for focus and memory. So that's pretty cool. And I also say is like, take a serious look if you're at the stage of really optimizing at taking caffeine breaks. If you're having coffee on a regular basis, like try to understand your nervous system a little better and take some time away from stimulants to kind of like reset and evaluate, and then use it more as a tool instead of like a constant crutch. And like easier said than done, but I'm just being real with you. Like when we're at the optimization level, we're looking at the nervous system, we're looking at balance, and that means sometimes returning to baseline on a gradual basis. So I guess there's a whole discussion on supplements, but I guess that's maybe some top of mind stuff.
Yeah. Collagen has seemed to have a recurrence.
Yeah.
Which, I think rightfully so. You probably, 5 years ago, I don't think anybody ever heard of collagen other than
Nice.
the stuff that you put on your skin,
Yeah.
And so a lot more people are talking about that. How do you use that with some of your clients? Do you recommend any of that?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, like in some of our products, we formulate a couple of our supplements. We have a undenatured type 2 collagen that is like research proven to be good for knee osteoarthritis and stuff like that. You can take that at night. But the key thing with the collagen supplements, I think, is like often people take them in the morning, like whatever's convenient. People take them often to their morning coffee, morning shakes and smoothies. Like that's fine. Like you get it in. I think there's benefit to taking some collagens on an empty stomach, but people could all benefit. So that comes down to maybe even eating more bone broths and stuff like that. If you can make those, like that's like a great way to get it, but also taking a collagen supplement in terms of powder is very good. I think Vital Proteins is a pretty solid brand, and collagen's like a deep topic. Like there's many types of collagen, type 1, 2, 3, and they have different benefits. Some are good for more connective tissue, hair, skin, and nails. Some are better for joints, but like collagen is solid. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that.
So let's get into the kind of peptide discussion for a second.
Okay.
I think that's a good kind of overview on some of the things people can add in. Have you experienced, is that in your wheelhouse of like seeing people using kind of GLP-1 peptides in the older group to try to use it for weight loss? I know there's a lot of the research on type 2 diabetes, but now it's getting into this like, we always look for these little hacks of can we cheat the system, so to speak. And it seems like that's the newest one. That's the one that seems to be everyone's question.
Yeah. And okay, I'll share a couple of interesting, fun things. Many, many years ago when I was an undergraduate research student, I was doing some of the original research on these GLP-1 peptides. Like before they became like mass market in this, we were actually doing and seeking the incretin effect of using some of these GLP-1 agonists on that. And now they're like mass market. So I'm like, that's cool, man. Like I'm so grateful I got to experience that many years ago. Peptides are great. I mean, I can't say I'm like by any means like a world-class expert in them, but they seem to have a very good safety profile, or many of them that are very popular. The problems are with them, like oftentimes they need to be administered via injection. Some can be oral, but that there's like a little bit of that. You need to be able to do that. But like the common ones like BPC 157, is very good. It increases healing. It's good for gut health. It's good for joint health. I'm taking it currently to help with some connective tissue issues. That's great. There's peptides, obviously, that are really good for the growth hormone signaling, like CJC, ipamorelin, these kinds of things. I think those are beneficial as well. It's a world to explore. It is certainly a world to explore. There's the category of peptides that are going to be increasing hormones. So they're either like secretagogues for certain hormones or mimicking certain hormones. That's cool. And then I think the healing peptides are probably like the most interesting ones. But there's peptides also like there's like melanotan derived peptides that can like tan you. There's peptides for sexual function. Like it's kind of the wild, wild west right now. And I get it's fascinating, right? These are like small chains of amino acids that we're not considering quite proteins that have big biological signaling effects. And I would say that we're probably going to find that there's some problems with peptides. Like there's probably some peptides that are going to have some like negative effects that we don't quite know of. But it can definitely increase your longevity. And for someone who's looking to live a long time, the main peptides I'd say with a lot of the healing, the TB 500 and BPC 157 would be two to really look into, as well as some of the growth hormone peptides could be beneficial as well.
Beautiful. Some of the light therapy that you were talking about, and kind of the other phases that people can kind of work into their life in terms of a technology stuff. What things have y'all found to be really, really helpful, powerful?
Yeah, I honestly, like it's going to be mostly red and infrared therapy is going to be the go-to for getting bang for your buck. And I think the broader conversation here is that we need to be connected to a proper circadian rhythm, and all of that is dependent on the natural cycles of the sun. So when we look up the sun and the sunlight, it's only about 50% visible light. It's about 40% near infrared, and about, depending on the time of day, about 8 or 10% UV light. And we're naturally supposed to be in contact with the light that's coming through. And so in the morning, we're meant to, if we look at the sun, get this natural infrared. We're meant to be in contact with some amount of UV to synthesize vitamin D. And then during the day, the sky looks blue because effectively all the gases in the sky are scattering blue light. So we want to both entrain our circadian rhythm to the proper light patterns, meaning we get infrared in the morning, infrared in the evening as well when the sun is setting, and blue light natural exposure during the day, and not artificial blue light from technology late at night. We've all heard that story before. Very, very important. But like you get that part down, then you can get into red light and near infrared wavelengths. And there's a lot of devices like infrared saunas. You can get some of these panels that kick off different kinds of light. And there's 3 different wavelengths of infrared, near, mid, and far. And they have different biological effects. Most of the machines out in the market are going to be near infrared. Good for mitochondrial health, good for stimulating collagen production, good for increasing blood flow. And I think just getting exposed to that. And even during a circadian time, which I think maybe in the morning is a very good time when the sun is naturally has a high amount of infrared coming, or at night when we see that sunset that looks often red and orange. This is because our eyes are perceiving some red spectrum of light, and near infrared is close to that. It's just it's just not visible, but it's around that wavelength. I have an infrared sauna, as well as I have like an infrared like knee light wrap that, I've been healing a knee injury from a serious skiing accident, and like that's something that I use for healing. But for someone who's looking for skin longevity, anti-aging, they have a lot of these devices that are a combination of red light and near infrared, and it increases collagen production naturally through a light input, not just like eating collagen. So I think the red light's good. There's been some cool research on green light and for headaches and reducing pain and inflammation. And that's just like a different spectrum of light that are coming from LEDs, and people have different kind of like face things that they can throw on. And then I want to kind of like go to bat for blue light, because I think people are now getting into the same kind of like carbs and sugar are bad. Blue light is bad. Blue light is natural. It is a spectrum of light that increases alertness, improves reaction times, improves memory. We're just meant to have it during the day when there's natural ambient blue light. We're just not meant to have it at night. So like, get your blue blocking glasses, like get all that crap off the phone like late at night, but like understand blue light can be your friend, and it can make you alert in the day. So you can use light to your benefit, and the overall picture is light is meant to be entrained in these different circadian cycles, and we're meant to be connected to that.
I love it. Yeah, one of the things that we do, and we thought this would be an athletic thing, that they would love it the most, but our patients that are probably over 50 love it more than anything, is they'll do an infrared PEMF session combined, nice. And then they'll go do a cryotherapy session after nice. That. And then we leave them with that a lot of times. This could depend on what they have going on. We could flip it and do some different order, but a lot of times we'll do it that way. and it's like the mitochondria boost that they get, the hormone boost that they get, the mental and physical benefits from that sequence. If you have access to that, or you can create access to that on your own, it is so great from physical, mental, hormonal, immune, like every level gets touched in a positive way when you combine them like that. So I love the stacking. You're killing it, man. I love what y'all are doing. How does this look in your life? Like what is you're a busy guy. This is kind of a self-serving question, to be honest, because I know what you do. How do you balance kind of doing the work and staying focused on some of these things and keeping the eye on the future in terms of like, staying and optimizing health and doing the stuff you need to do now?
Yeah, well, I mean, the cool thing is like when you know the importance of this stuff, like I have all these devices at home. I have a cold tub. It's out in my backyard. I hop in it in the morning. I have an infrared sauna. I wish I could tell you I use it every day, but I did use it last night, and and that felt pretty good. And I do the same things with my nutrition as the through line, and I have a PEMF mat in my house. I have the IMRS. I used it this morning before we hopped on this call. I use it at night sometimes to relax and go to sleep. So I think my main devices and technologies is the infrared sauna, the cold tub, and the PEMF mat, and I have all of those at my house. And as it's so interesting as a fellow practitioner, right? We're oftentimes so busy like helping and facilitating that our own stuff can be put on the wayside. And I guess it comes down to those sacred times. I have 2 times when I can do these things: in the morning, in a part of my routine, or in the evening. And it's not every day, but if I'm doing 3 to 5 days per week of getting consistent with this, man, I'm like totally winning. And the cool thing about like the cold tub is like that's just a mental hurdle, because that's 3 minutes. Like I have the time for that, and I know like it's like coffee in the tub. Basically, you just get like the massive benefits of doing that. And the morning is a perfect time. It wakes you up. It's very good. I know a 50-minute infrared sauna session, like I might not have the time for that, but a couple times per week is of great benefit. And I guess, I stack the morning with the right kinds of supplements and products, like taking stuff that boosts my nitric oxide. I'm getting my minerals in the morning. And then the rest kind of like all falls in place. One thing that I do less of now than I did when I was like in my 20s and I was a competitive bodybuilder back then is I don't work out nearly as much. I might do like hard training like 2-3 times a week, but I'm always walking. I'm always breathing through my nose. And I'm also just happy with carrying slightly less muscle mass now, but still looking good because the nutrition stays on point. And here's another last benefit to being lean. When you get your body to a leaner state, you can actually see fluctuations a lot faster and realize when you're drifting. When you get yourself leaner and you look in the mirror and you're like, man, like I'm pretty bloated or I'm drifting here. It's like gives you the ability to like minimize drifts. And so I'll auto-regulate how I'm doing based on my nutrition. If things are not going great, I might do some fasting for a little bit to kind of do a reset. And I think that's a nice segue into my next kind of like longevity hack as we wrap up this conversation, is that I think deep fasting has a lot of benefit. Now, whether or not you intermittent fast on a daily basis, there is absolute benefit to getting your body into a deep catabolic metabolism for a number of days. We need to balance anabolism and catabolism. A lot of the stuff we're talking about, muscle building and feeding the proteins and some kind of carbohydrates, is anabolic metabolism. Very, very good. But anabolic metabolism left unchecked is a cancer process, and our body needs to effectively have a catabolic breakdown process as well, and that's where fasting comes in. So 24-hour fast, dinner to dinner fast once a week, I think is a strong health habit. Have dinner today, drink water, non-caloric fluids until dinner the next day. There's growth hormone benefits. It increases neuronal growth. It's good for your relationship to food, and it can offset if you're carrying like a lot of water, a lot of stored carbohydrates, or a lot of poop. It can like be a reset, mechanism for that. And then a couple times, like once per quarter, I'll extend that to a 72-hour water fast. And that's like not fun. They get easier over time, but just like I think it's important to do that, to like look at the benefits of that and understand what the research says. So you're like, okay, this is actually worth my time to not eat for a few days. And I have a really good YouTube video on that. And there's a lot of people that have videos as well on the benefits of 3-day fasting. But like that's beneficial for sure. It activates stem cells. It gets rid of a lot of these senescent immune cells that just get weaker with age. And again, that's a profound stimulus for the body that you cannot get in any other way. You could take your supplements, you could take your workouts, but like it's not doing the same thing as literally not feeding yourself for 3 days. Still staying hydrated, in my opinion, but I think that's a pretty powerful hack.
Yeah, I'm with you 1,000%. We've had more patients who do, kind of, we call it a reset. They'll do a fasting mimicking diet for,
Nice.
5 days, tons of weight loss. But the big stuff that they notice is the feeling of energy and pain relief. And I think that's getting your body into these states of clearing out all the bad stuff that starts to accumulate. And that is part of this kind of, aging healthy, is that we need to make sure that we're clearing this stuff out at regular intervals, because as much as we all try, we still live in this modern world. And so you're going to get that stuff into you. And so we just need to know that. The same thing we talked about at the top of the show is like, you need to know where your hiccup points are going to be and put little things in place, and doing a periodic prolonged fast. To me, there's very few people on the planet that don't need that periodically throughout the year.
For sure. And I think so that's good. Last thing is if we live in a world that has toxic inputs, and we obviously can't perfectly control them, when you say the body's designed to heal, the body's also designed to detoxify. Like, we just need to give it the time, the space, and the inputs. So the fasting is a huge stimulus for that. So is sauna, so is exercise, so is fiber and good pooping. Like, increasing elimination mechanisms is everything in today's world, because you can't control what's necessarily on your food at all times. And so getting a good sweat on a regular basis, getting a good fast on, these things are essential for a long, healthy life.
So good. We have hit so many perfect things. I love what you're saying. I love what y'all are doing. Where can people find kind of more of your information? You put so much out. Where can they find out more about all of your projects?
Yeah, so the two companies and brands that I run are Fit Father Project. That's the brand for men over 40 who want to get in shape, and then Fit Mother Project for our ladies and moms 40 plus who also want to be on this fitness journey. So the websites are exactly as they sound: fitfatherproject.com and fitmotherproject.com, and you can see all these inspiring case studies. Collectively between those two, we've run over 70,000 people through these programs and health journeys. So we have a lot of data. We've seen a ton of people go through and have great success. So those websites, and then our YouTube channels, are another great resource. We have over 500 videos. You can just YouTube search Fit Father Project or Fit Mother Project, and you'll find us. And there's a lot more discussions like this. Although I will say, Derrick, due to how you guided this one was particularly good. It was deep. We covered a lot, and it's really because of the frame you set. So thank you on behalf of everyone listening for guiding us here. It was a good conversation.
Yeah, I loved it. We may have to get some questions and line up a round two. I got through one little quarter of my 2 pages of notes for us. So as is typical on the Pain of Performance podcast. One question we ask all our guests when we wrap this up: if someone listening to this could do one thing today to improve their health, what would that one thing be?
Well, I would say it's if you're literally listening to this at this point, there is at least one thing from this conversation that resonated with you, being I have a major gap or deficiency there. It could be from the beginning of this conversation that I haven't done this kind of deep motivational work and I feel like I'm lacking motivation. Then that needs to be the thing. If someone's I don't have a morning ritual in place, I don't know how to manage that morning and I'm finding inconsistency there, then that is the thing. It's we can have these powerful discussions and self-reflections, and once we realize that aha moment, that is the exact area to take the focused action in. So I guess the meta answer to this is, what you found that resonated with you, that made your head nod, and you were holy shit, I can't believe I've been missing that. Make that your one practice this upcoming week, and then you're going to start to get traction. That is going to be the domino for you. That's going to be the thing that starts to move you forward and propel you. And maybe that comes down to listening this one more time and then seeing where that next aha is. But take all the clutter out, focus on that one thing this week and getting traction on that, and then you're going to be able to build off of that.
So good. Dr. Anthony Balduzzi, thank you so much for what you do. Thanks for all the help y'all are putting in the world, all the positivity. I love it, man. Keep it going. You're killing it. Y'all are doing amazing things over there. Thanks a lot, man.
Appreciate you.